Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario. Welcome back to another episode of Mario's Minute. In case you do not know, this is a podcast I do monthly here in two forms. First of all, I do it in a visual form on the Mr. Mario 2011 YouTube channel, where it has a cool looking visual. At least I think it's a cool looking visual with my kind of channel art and everything in the background there. So if you want to come over, check that out, have that visual running in the background, and even join in the conversation on the comments section, you're more than welcome to do that. There's also a actual podcast version. If you want to take this around and listen to it wherever you want to, like, well, you would an actual podcast, listen to it at your computer, in the car, on the toilet, wherever the hell you're going to listen to your favorite podcast. And it's not available on all podcasting apps and platforms, but it's available on most of them. Simply look up Mario's Minute, and you should hopefully be able to find it. Now, this is just a podcast where it's super laid back. I do it once a month, and I really just talk about whatever the hell I want to. Sometimes I have a guest on here, sometimes I don't, and I've tried to alternate it every other month. And this month I was able to get a guest on here. So he's been a dude I've known for a bit. There's been people who have asked about this as well too. But as I always say to my guest, who the hell are you?
Hello, I am Josh Davidson, otherwise known as Octal 450, and I am an electronics hobbyist and a Xbox 360 technician.
I think that's a great way to summarize yourself. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty well tonight. Got a bunch of work done. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's been a busy week overall. We're recording this the week before Thanksgiving, at least here in the US, and then this is going to be releasing right before. So maybe some people will be chewing some turkey and everything when they're going to be listening to this. But yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, I know
yes.
myself. I'll be driving down to see some family. So, you have any plans for Thanksgiving?
I do have some plans. Yeah, I'm gonna be hanging out with family as well too. So it's just a
Awesome.
nice homey family time, and probably looking to see what games and all that stuff are on sale. So I don't know how that's really going to work out, not just with like the game stuff, but also just how I mean the electronics market
Yeah,
is a little shit right now.
yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that too. It doesn't matter what you're looking for. I mean, some things have good prices, but other things are just through the roof. It's been insane. It's been affected in almost every industry that I've looked at.
Exactly. And it's not just even the industrial stuff, it's even just, like the demand for everything is there
Oh
as well
yeah.
too, and the supply can't really keep up. So I know, like, for example, like at the beginning, like this is beginning by as in like pandemic, it was like March, April, May 2020. I know video games are just like at skyrocketing prices because everyone's at
Yeah.
home and they just want to play their old games. It's like, well, I'm at home doing nothing. And it was actually like people were buying up expensive games because that makes sense. Like, you have all this time, you have some extra money, why not? But now at this point,
Right.
it's just kind of everything has been going up just slowly, steadily. Or even so, I know the people who are working on, like, people who work on component related stuff, like such as you, I'm sure you've had your stuff go up in price as well too, even just to either order or build components.
Oh yeah, everything has gone up, and some of the stuff from China is actually okay, which is surprising. But the stuff in the U.S., a lot of the stuff has gone up in price. I actually didn't even think that would happen, but I guess as more people are at home using their stuff, more things are breaking, and I guess the demand is going up for parts. That's the only thing I can think about. But yeah, it's really affected everything. I mean, even people selling things privately on Facebook, things are more expensive than they used to be. I used to be
Hmm.
able to pick up a good amount of things for $20 2 years ago, but these days, you look $20, you're barely going to get anything. At least in my area, maybe it's different
Oh,
somewhere else,
full
but over
circle.
here, it's crazy.
That just sounds like the long, long ago. I actually did want to ask because I know, I mean, when you work on consoles and everything, like, I'm sure you pick up scrap consoles and all that stuff. But like, getting like original Xboxes or Xbox 360s, about how much has that gone up in price for you if you're just getting like a base system?
Well, I'll tell you, back in 2019, I was getting what I would do is I would go out on the weekends usually, and I'd drive around to 5 or 6 towns and just pick up loads of systems there. And you could get systems for $10 to $20 in decent condition that just need a little bit of cleaning. But when the pandemic started, now you can barely do that. The prices are so high that you're honestly better off getting a system off eBay for $50 to $60 or more. It's pretty insane. And at least with the Xbox, another thing I'm running into is a lot of people that are selling the consoles are selling them in horrible condition. You're not finding as many people willing to part with their systems during these times because I guess they're at home more. So most of the systems you see are very dirty and are very scratched up and just not in great shape. I assume it's like that with other consoles too, but it's been crazy.
Sure, sure. I believe that. I haven't really been to game shops. Unfortunately, in my area, there's not really any local game shops anymore. Even like thrift
Yeah.
stores, I don't really frequent them as often, but I really don't see that much hardware. And even if I do, it's still kind of up there in price. So I can agree with that. I've gotten lucky a few times, like finding a few video games that are in like, decent shape, like decent price and everything. So that's been okay. But yeah, it's kind of just also everybody's what you were doing. It seems like a lot more people are doing that as well too.
Yeah, everything's gone up, and especially, I mean, having so many people home from work, there's been a lot of cool things actually coming out. One thing that's really caught my eye is actually the college football revamped mod.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
been recent. Now, I am not a sports gamer at all. I'm not really even a big sports person in general, but I gotta say that when I was playing the game and testing it out, I actually was pretty intrigued by that mod. It was kind of cool to be able to have this video game version and have the real teams and stuff. That was pretty interesting to me.
Mhm.
Um, and I know there's a few other cool projects that have been going on recently, so that's definitely put up the demand. But yeah, you're right. The stores are it's crazy. The only thing we had around here was a GameStop, and I'm pretty sure it's gone now. I'm not, actually not sure. I
What?
haven't been there in a bit, but I think they closed.
Well, that's
And
disappointing.
yeah, there's probably a few more farther away. But I'll tell you this much: back in 19, I mean, it was at the point where I would walk into the GameStop and the guy would already know what I was there for. I mean, and now it's like I never go to them at all. So it's really changed everything in terms of what you
Mhm.
buy, whether it's games, controllers, consoles. I mean, it's all changed.
For sure. I do miss the times where you can go into a thrift shop and it's just like, "Oh, there's like a stack of original Xboxes that are in pretty okay
Oh
shape and
yeah.
each of them is like $5 or $7." And I'm just like, "I'm getting all of these."
Yeah, my friend of mine is near a thrift shop, and he's found consoles there for like $5. I think he even found a JTAGable Jasper there once, and
Dude, the
that's
stuff you can find
insane.
the stuff
I
you can
miss
find
that.
at those. Yeah. Yep. I it wasn't a Jasper, but I actually got a JTagable Xenon from a friend of mine. Where
Oh,
get this,
nice.
it was like, um, it wasn't it was her brother's console. That was it. This is like probably about 10 years ago. This when I was in college. It was her brother's
Wow.
console. He had bought a new one a few years prior. The old one, it red ringed, it was dead, whatever. And this thing was in near perfect shape because like it didn't look great, right? Like it needed a cleaning and it had like this like stupid skin on it. But I took the skin off, cleaned it. It was great. I opened it up. Thankfully, the family didn't smoke, but it was like full of dust and dirt and everything. Blew
Oh
it
boy.
out. Then I turned it on, it booted up green. Turned off, turned it on again, booted up green. And I text her, I'm like, "Hey, this Xbox works. Like, what's going on?" And she's like, "Oh, ha, it sucks to be him. You can keep it. It's fine."
That's a
Then I
lucky find.
Yeah, then I hooked it up to my TV and there was Blades Dash on there. I'm just like, "Oh my
Oh
god,
yeah.
like I've been wanting one of these for so long and it's like you just had it like in the corner of your house?"
Oh yeah, that's lucky. Did you end up
Yes.
modding it or just
Yes, yes. Of course.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
had a similar story actually. That's how I got into the consoles themselves. At the time, I was dating a girl that had a bunch of old tech in her basement. I don't remember why, but one of them was an old Zephyr 360, and I got it. I was trying to fix it, and I didn't know how, and that was what really piqued my interest in the 360 was learning how to fix it. And that ended up being not JTagable, but it was I think the Connect dashboards or something earlier, and I think I still have that console. That was a pretty cool system, and yeah, I mean, what you're saying about the dust, you'll find crazy things in those Xboxes. Some of them
Mhm.
will have this very light dust that just wipes away or blows away, and then you get the thick brown stuff. I'm sure you've experienced that. It's just
Yeah.
horrible.
The worst is the ones that come I think you can agree the worst is the ones that come from smokers' homes
Oh
where all the
yeah.
tar and nicotine gets in there, and then all the dust and dirt sticks to all of that, and then you probably have roaches in there as well too, because they find this, like, nice, comfy, warm, dirty place to get into that the humans can't disturb them. I hate it so much.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you,
Yeah.
I literally, when I get systems like that, I take the plastics, all the plastic pieces, and just hose them down with soap. It's just not even worth cleaning by hand because it will never come off. But the
Yeah.
hose and soap, that works. It's crazy how much gets in there. But
Mhm.
it always amuses me when you get like a console where the owner hasn't used the disk drive much and you have a disgusting console and then you open the disk drive and the disk drive looks brand new and always makes me laugh even years later.
I haven't really run into that. I've more been on the opposite where it's like
Really?
the console is dirty and stuff, and then I open up the disk drive and it's even worse. It's like a jungle is in there of dirt and grime, and it's just like all the brown stuff has clumped together and is hanging off. And there's been a few consoles I'm like, I don't even want to salvage the disk drive. It's so bad.
Oh, that bad? Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've had
yeah.
some bad disk drives, but never worse than the console. That's something I'm glad I've avoided.
It's happened to me a handful of times, and
Wow.
I'm just like, that is disgusting. It's so bad.
Wow,
Yeah, and
that's insane.
it's telling too because I've worked on enough systems where I'm like, I could like open up a person's system and I can tell how their environment is and maybe even their lifestyle just from that system.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
when I opened up like my PS4 Pro, like the one I have in my basement, for example, there was a little bit of dust in there because yeah, I'm not the best with dusting. And there was like maybe like a few dog furs in there because surprise, surprise, I have a dog that doesn't stop shedding, but I don't smoke. I don't have a super filthy area, so it was fine for the most part.
Yeah, that's something interesting, and I think I will say this though, I did have a few consoles that I got that had dead bugs just everywhere in
Yeah.
them. And I've actually, told the owner, "Hey, like this is your console, right?" And it's at that point where you're thinking, "Please let this person have picked up the console from like a salvage yard or something. Please tell me
No.
people don't live like this." And luckily, those few times, those guys always said, "Oh yeah, I picked the console up from, it was sitting in a shed or something, right?" Because I'm thinking, oh, if you have that many bugs in your console, I can't even imagine what's on your shelf. That's just me personally. I mean, I'm a neat freak. I dust my computers and all that every few months. I can't stand dust, but
I
that's an
understand.
extreme.
Yeah. I think we've talked about this, but have we talked about like the story? There's an old video of mine where I was talking about the Xbox 360 Slim we got in at the game shop I used to work at in high school, and it was like shortly after the Slim came out, and it was just like infected full of bugs that were literally jumping out of it.
Oh, jeez. Were they
Did
alive?
They were alive, man. There was
Wow.
multiple, and they were pissed off that we were shaking the system. Like you just touched it, and like those bugs were making noises and everything. Yeah. Did you ever did I ever share this with you or not?
I don't think you have.
So I'll have to link the video to you, and I'm thinking of even remaking it at one point. But in short, yeah, we got like a Slim, and like the kid calls up, and he's just like, "Yeah, so it's making like weird noises, and it keeps overheating." And it was like maybe like 6 months after the Slim came out, and it looked good. Like when they took it out of the bag, it looked fine, and then they showed it to me at an angle, and I could see bugs running across the inside through the fan vent.
Oh, jeez.
And I told them there's bugs in your system. They didn't know what I meant. I was like, there's bugs in your system. They
It's
look down. I swear it's something like a movie, man. They look down. Bugs jumped out of the system and onto the glass countertop. I was working by myself.
wow.
I don't like bugs. I don't fuck with bugs. So I'm just like freaking out and everything. It was like two teenagers and a mom. Like the teenagers are laughing. The mom just has like a smile on her face. And even like at one point, she was just like, "Oh yeah, while you were over on the other side, another bug came out, but we killed it." And I was like, "Why do y'all think this is? Why are
This
y'all
is
acting like
funny.
this is
Oh my
normal?"
god.
It's not even just that it's funny. I'm like, you all are not phased by it. You all are acting like this is normal. And the thing is, on that video, the worst and most telling thing about it is there's many people who they agree they think it's disgusting, like in the comment section. And then I've noticed that there's been a few people who then get offended by my descriptions, by my reactions and everything. And I've just realized, like, looking at my comments over the years, it's like these people are mad because they live this way. And I'm on camera shocked and offended and appalled and disgusted at how these people are probably living. They're probably typing out these angry comments on a keyboard that has like roly polies underneath
Oh
it.
my. Uh, I've been lucky to never see a live bugs in a console, but I tell you, if I had something like that, I would have probably jumped. I mean,
I did.
I
I
don't
did.
mind bugs that much. I mind them when they're unexpected. So, like, if I'm opening a console expecting it to be clean and stuff, and then a bunch of bugs jumped out, oh man, that would have been startling.
I'm telling you, they were literally jumping out. It was bad.
I'll tell you this, I would never leave a system like that in my house because
Good.
I don't want to risk that being, infested. That's, I think, the one thing that I will not clean besides bodily fluids off someone's
Ew.
console is bugs. It's just not worth the risk of an infestation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll take it outside if it's not too bad and just clean it out there. But if it's crawling with alive bugs, man, what did you do with that? I'm actually really curious.
So I was like saying it was gross and all that stuff, and like typically we would just like write. I didn't want to touch a thing, and then the family was even like, "Hey, why don't you put it in a bag? You might want to actually double bag it." So I fucking double bag this thing, put like the piece of paper on there that says like, "Hey, Xbox 360 belongs to this person. Contact information. Warning: bugs, bugs, bugs." And I set it on the back table, like where or the stack where we had consoles to fix for customers. We had two technicians there. One of them, I warned him about it. He's like, "Oh, I'm not touching that. I'm passing it to the other." Like, I think the first guy, he was just like, "Yeah, no, we're gonna give it to the main tech to do because I'm not touching that." The main tech came in. He looked at. He's like, "I'm not touching that shit either." And I'm like,
I don't
"Guys, we
blame
got,
him.
we like, are we gonna fix this or what?" And it just sat there. And it sat there like almost all summer. It was like over 2 months. And then I just asked one day because I was like going through the inventory. I'm like, "Are we gonna fix this shit or not?" And they said no. So I called up the I was petty about it, okay? I
I don't
called
blame
up
you.
the customer and it was the kid that I originally talked to. And he was I say kid, he was like 14, 15 probably. And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is, me from video game shop calling about your Xbox 360." He's like, "Oh, yes, yes, what about?" I was like, "Yeah, we're sorry. The techs are not going to be looking at it. So sorry we've held it for so long, but we're not going to be fixing it for you." And I honestly I got it was there. It was my revenge. It was my revenge getting that because they brought this nasty system in. There's bugs everywhere jumping out of it. They're laughing about my reactions to it. We held the system for 2 months, and then I got to call them and say, "We're not fixing your nasty shit."
Yeah. That that's I mean, I don't blame you at all. I wouldn't fix something like that either. It's just not worth it.
Hmm.
Um I'm surprised they were laughing at you. I mean, that's shocking. I mean, it's one thing if you are disgusted by it, but like unless you live that way, I can't see anyone finding that amusing to just have bugs jumping out
And
of electronics. That's crazy to me.
that's why I'm saying that this was very much a thing where like I could tell how their household was just from the
Jeez,
hardware,
yeah.
and I could tell how they lived.
The venom in your voice really says it all.
Dude, that's one of the most disgusting systems I've ever come across.
Oh
So
yeah,
yes,
yeah. I
yes,
mean, I have a rule like if I can tell the guy just picked it up somewhere, and you can usually tell in how they respond, even if they don't say it. You can tell whether they seem like they knew the console was in such a state or not. And I mean, I'll try to help him out. I mean, sometimes I'll just give him a replacement board if I have one lying around or something. I'll try to help people out. But if someone is laughing at you because you're saying you're not touching something disgusting like that, like, no. Like, with all due respect, get fucked. I mean, I'm not touching that. That's where I draw the line.
that's respectable. Sure,
But yeah, I'm lucky I never encountered alive bugs, only dead ones. So
good.
I'm gonna pray it stays that way. But I
Yeah,
mean, the majority of the systems I get in are just a little dusty and not too bad.
that's
So
how it should be, especially with how old they are. So
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's one of the reasons I also hope that more right to repair starts going through because, the Xbox, if you just look at it, there's no clear way how to get into it. You have to know where the release tabs are. right? So
You're talking about the 360,
the
just for anybody who's
360,
uninitiated here. Yeah.
yeah, and a few other consoles that I've, seen throughout the years. I mean, some of them have, the normal screws under the rubber feet, but I've seen multiple systems and laptops and things where you just can't tell how to get into them.
Mhm.
And of course, these people can't clean their consoles because they can't figure out how to get into it. If you had
Mhm.
a simpler way to open the system, you could probably clean it out pretty easily with just some compressed air, or even, I mean, if you wanted to get really jank, you could probably even do it with a leaf blower, and that would prevent so much dust and dirt. And
Have people done that, the leaf blower thing?
oh, I've seen it done. I've seen
Oh
people
my
do
god.
that.
I guess it works, sure, but oh my
Yeah,
god,
it's
it's
not a
just
great idea with the static,
no.
but
No, it's not.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I really do think that there's a big advantage to people being able to open the systems up easier. I mean, unless you're stupid, I don't think anyone's going to go randomly touching things and trying to break it. So I really think
Mhm.
people should be able to open the consoles and clean them out properly, and, not have to have the system get so dirty. So then eventually it either overheats, or when someone has to service it, it's just a mess of dirt.
You know, even I'm sure you know about this, but I know all these warranty seals that these consoles have had. Mainly,
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think they're on the newer generation, like ninth gen. I don't believe so. But all the older systems that had warranty stickers on them, like 360, PS3, even I guess we can say, because it didn't have a sticker per se, but it had like stickers at the bottom of the system, like little white square stickers.
Yeah.
Those were like those have been illegal. Like they were illegal for I want to say at least 1 or 2 decades prior, but it just wasn't really enforced. So that's why you kind of see on newer systems where they are not going to, like the Switch, for example, does not have a warranty seal on it. And even when it comes to right to repair, it's very much like unless you have done something like when you were in the system and like you yourself damaged it, if you were just opening up the system, cleaning it, maintaining it, putting it back together, like they can't turn down that repair.
Yeah. And I think the thing with the warranty stickers is, you know, they can be a good tool to find out whether someone's been in the system, which can be very useful for
Correct.
diagnostic. If you don't know what's wrong with the system, but you know somebody did something, that already may change the way you approach the problem, versus
Hmm.
where if the system was working fine and then just one day died. But I agree, as they've been illegal, I mean, they should not be used as a, okay, you broke the warranty, now we're not going to offer you service. That should definitely not be done, but I do think they're fine as long as they're just being used as an additional tool to see whether the system has been tampered with. And, it doesn't really change that much. At the end of the day, if the technician is competent, he's going to find out exactly what the problem is with the system,
Hmm.
whether or not it's broken because it died randomly or whether it died because someone poked around with a screwdriver. He'll find out what the problem is. So the seal really is just an indicator of whether someone was in there, and I think that's fine. But the moment it starts being used as a, okay, if you break this seal, we either won't offer you repair or we'll charge you an insane amount or do anything that is silly like that, then I think that crosses the line.
And very much the other thing with right to repair as well too. It's like, okay, well, I even want to fix this myself. So
Right.
even if I'm going to void the warranty, that's cool. Can you just give me a legitimate method of if you can provide some schematics, some documentation over, opening up the system, how to replace certain things, and even if I can just buy the parts off of big company that produces consoles, like that would be great.
Be
Like, hey,
awesome.
the Xbox, let's say the Blu-ray drive goes out on there. It's like, cool. I feel like I'm at home. I can open this up. I can confidently take it apart. Even if I mess something up, that's my own responsibility. It's all good. Hey, Microsoft, could I just purchase a replacement Blu-ray drive?
Yeah, that would be an awesome thing, and I think the first step will definitely be parts and maybe the service manuals, because we know the service manuals are already sent out to certain companies that are authorized to repair them, and that just shows how to get into the system, the basic things. I think that will be the first step. I think schematics will be a little bit harder, but that would be awesome if those could get out too. And yeah, you're completely right. The availability of parts directly from the manufacturer would be a great thing, not only for people to replace parts, but it also means people don't have to buy counterfeit parts.
Yep.
A lot of times, you either can't tell if parts are genuine very easily, or I mean, they have some pretty good clones coming out in China. I've seen some chips that you can't tell that these are clone chips unless you specifically look at the exact model number on the chip. Maybe there's a slight difference, and some of them are even the same. You can't tell at all. So you don't know if you're getting a clone chip that's going to die in 2 months or something from the real manufacturer. So I think it would be awesome if we could get those parts reliably, especially if you're a shop that's doing those things professionally.
And just even it goes even so much deeper than that too. I know, of course, like big shout out to Louis Rossman,
Oh
but
yeah.
he has one of my favorite examples of this where he's a just computer technician, everything, and that's putting it lightly. But he has said that, like, I don't, of course, I'm gonna, forgive me, I'm gonna mess up the model numbers and all that stuff, but I'm just gonna generalize it here. There is a newer MacBook Pro, I believe, and there is a chip that can go out on there, and he
Right.
found the chip, he isolated it. It is a Texas Instruments chip, and he couldn't find it anywhere else, so he figured it all out. He went to Texas Instruments, he tried to purchase it, and they said, sorry, even though you know this exact chip and everything, and it's not Apple that manufactures it, it's us. We cannot sell it to you because we have an exclusive contract with Apple only to sell this chip to Apple. So, therefore, the only way he can get a hold of that chip is by getting a hold of another MacBook Pro, hopefully one that's damaged in a different way, and salvaging the chip off of the broken MacBook Pro to then fix the current broken MacBook Pro that he's trying to repair.
Yeah, exactly. And that type of thing really frustrates me, especially since there is not really a good reason for that chip to be kept, not being able to be sold. It'd be one thing if there were like clones coming out everywhere, but that isn't the case. I'm not aware of any clone MacBook motherboards or anything like that happening. So as far as I can tell, the only reason why that chip is not available is simply to prevent the ability for third parties to repair the product, which I don't really like, considering that Apple, brands themselves as saying environmentally friendly. So they should really be allowing us to have an easier time repairing their products, because you can't repair the product; it's going in the garbage bin. So I don't know how I feel about that. That's an interesting problem. And yeah, it'd
Yeah.
be awesome if we could get those chips. And the other thing is, obviously, when you're salvaging parts, you have no idea if they work or not. And I've run into
Mhm.
this issue on the Xbox too. Some parts it's just not economical to get from China, so you salvage them and you don't know if they work. And you put it on the board, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. It's a toss up almost every time since the other board's broken and you can't fully test it. But yeah, it's a real shame, and I really hope that right to repair becomes a bigger and more successful movement.
Yes. Well, the good thing is, I mean, it's been passed and everything, and now it just
Yeah.
has to be enforced. So that's why, I mean, we're seeing, I believe, didn't Microsoft start releasing schematics for, I believe, the Xbox One? Was that it? Or am I
I'm
misremembering?
not sure actually.
Okay, I believe they released some schematics, and I know, like, this is right when we're recording this right now. It was
That would be
maybe within the
awesome.
last day or so. Apple is now opening up, third party repair a bit more, but it's only limited right now in terms of, like, right to repair and such. It's really only limited to like the iPhone 12 and 13.
Yeah, and I would be interested to see how that Apple program progresses. I'm sure that most people, if you follow Right to Repair, heard about the independent repair program they made and the complete failure of that, and that it didn't really
That,
provide anything and took away technicians' permissions to do other repairs. So I'm hoping that
yes.
they do it right this time. And I mean, I don't like to hold grudges. If they do it right, I will be very, very happy with Apple.
Hmm.
And I would love to see them take a lead and show other manufacturers that are doing anti right to repair practices or anti repair practices that no, we can design thin and sexy devices that can also be repaired. And I mean, I don't mind taking a heat gun if you want me to open the phone. That's fine. Just let me buy the parts I need. Let me
Sure.
access the tools I need, and let me figure it out. That's how it's been in the past, and I really hope it gets that way in the future again.
Mhm. Mhm. I agree. I really don't like mobile repair. The most I've done, I mean, I've replaced batteries on my phones. It is annoying doing that, but it's always a
Oh
thing where
yeah.
it's like, yeah, I recognize if I mess up, it's my own thing. So even when I've done it for others, I'm like, all right, are you sure you want me to do it? Cool. Let's get the parts. Make sure your shit's backed up, and let's make sure you also have a backup phone on deck in case this goes south. And then it always works, thankfully. But still.
Yeah, that's good on you for doing that. And yeah, mobile repair is not my favorite thing to do either. Luckily, I've not had to do it too much. Especially the parts are way smaller than in typical laptops, and that's not fun. But yeah, it would be great to get the parts for all types of devices, even if it's something from a game console to a laptop to a phone, cars. It'd be great to get that stuff
Mhm.
easier.
The only thing that you run into in terms of the world of game consoles is that there's certain things that are keyed. So, like for
Yeah.
example, like with the Xbox 360 and beyond, again, if you want to replace the Blu-ray drive, they're not. I really doubt that Microsoft's ever going to release the programs to rekey a Blu-ray drive to that matching system right there. So I'd
Yeah.
wonder if they would only sell the disk drive itself without the daughter board on there, and in instructions say you have to swap the daughter board from the old Blu-ray drive to the new one.
Yeah, it's an interesting ethical question, I think, because a computer and a laptop and a phone assumes that the user wants to keep the device safe and not attack it, whereas with a game console, Microsoft and Sony and all the other companies are assuming that the user is trying to hack the Xbox or the system, right?
Sure.
So I think a way around it might just be, Microsoft obviously, if they were, for example, selling replacement disk drives, they have a very easy way to pair the disk drive. They don't have to do our little method of booting Zell and grabbing the key and all that. They have all the tools they need. So I don't really understand why they could not just sell the disk drive programmed. You would send them your serial number. They have your key vault. They can see your DVD key.
Oh,
They
that'd be
should be able to
nice.
just send you a drive with the serial on it. Now, maybe that's too much work. And I mean, in that case, as you said, you can swap the daughter board, but I mean, it's not impossible to do those things.
Yeah, and even the thing is as well too with that all, it's like, well, what if the daughter board is fried in
Right.
some way,
Yeah. Then what
which
do you
can
do?
certainly happen as well too. So it's like, well, even if I swap the daughter board, well, the daughter board is the actual issue, so I need to pull the key and get it flashed onto a working daughter board.
Oh yeah, and that's uncommon, thankfully. But I've run
Yeah.
into that several times where the controller on board is just shot. And I think in
Mhm.
some of the early drives, you were actually okay because the flash chip was separate from the controller, so you could swap the controller. But when they started
Mm.
exploiting the security, Microsoft merged them together, and yeah, that put an end to that.
Mhm.
So that's always annoying, especially on the slims where you got to buy the PCB or you got to find one and unlock it, and it's much more of a pain to do. But yeah, it's an interesting problem, and it's definitely harder to figure out than, for example, just selling like a PWM driver chip or something like that.
Sure, sure. I do know of there was it was actually my former boss. It was from the game shop. I guess he kind of had a little bit of like a game store mentor in like a friend of his who ran a game shop in California. So he went out there a few times, saw what was being done, even bought like a rework machine off him and all that
Oh
stuff.
wow.
And yeah, I mean, he was doing console repair, he was doing it properly. But I remember because my boss actually asked me to show him, and I had shown him this and everything, just in terms of flashing drives, and I don't think he ever used it. I think he forgot the knowledge and he just didn't use it because he was swapping daughter boards, but he was like, no, like my friend over in California, he does something like he doesn't. He was shocked that I was swapping the boards because he just hooks them up to his computer and he does something to reprogram them.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
I
No, it
must.
wasn't it was legitimate though, like as in it wasn't like a Microsoft tool. I'm sure it was Jungle Flasher and stuff, but like legit as in like he wasn't flashing custom firmware to the drives. Like he was like in order to, replace with like a fresh drive or something, he was just pulling the key off one and then flashing it to the other.
Yeah, yeah, and all the stock firmwares are around, so I imagine he was just doing something, as you said, like Jungle Flasher, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, that must have seemed pretty amazing at the time when those
Mhm.
things were not so widely known. Just to hear, wait, you can reflash these? What?
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been pretty
You
incredible,
can program them? What?
especially for a system that was unhackable by design.
Mhm.
Sure you all remember those quotes.
Gotta love that.
Yeah,
I
Microsoft really shot themselves in the foot with the 360, and it kind of amuses me how simple of a mistake it would have been to prevent. For
Mhm.
those of you that are not aware, the reason RGH is unpatched is because their updated bootloader, when they split it into two stages on the fat models, and the slim one was already like this,
Yep.
they later updated it, and when they updated it, they made the mistake that the CBA, which is the first bootloader that the system runs after the CPU's bootloader, doesn't ever check the fuses. So the fuses that they created to lock down the security were completely irrelevant. And unfortunately
Very
for
nice.
them, even though they did encrypt it with the CPU key, unfortunately for them, the unencrypted manufacturing bootloader leaked out from the factory, as everything leaks in time, you know? And that's the end of it. We can now launch that bootloader on any Xbox, and if someone ever does find a way to do fault injection on a Winchester, it would work there too. That's forever going to be an exploit here. So I just find that to be very amusing.
Hmm. Yeah. I will say though, I mean, even in terms of it, like I'll at least respect the Xbox 360 that like it's still remained pretty secure, as in like, yeah,
Oh
people
yeah,
are gonna say, okay, you can flash the DVD drive, you can RGH all that stuff, and like I get that. By that I mean there's nothing you can do. Like you can't just do like a USB exploit or something.
oh absolutely. And
Yeah.
not too familiar with the exact kernel security about how that works, but I know that that type of soft mod exploit has been looked at for so long and no one has found. Now maybe someday someone will find a bug in the hypervisor that allows it, but I don't think the
Yes.
USB ports are even initialized during the bootloader stage, so you'd have to find some privilege execution for the hypervisor or something like that to
Hmm.
get access. I'm not the best with that type of software security, but I imagine it would have to be a pretty big exploit to find, and we'll see
Hmm.
how long Microsoft is still updating the 360.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I know they're kind of just doing like the almost like the basic like kernel updates on there and
Yeah.
such, but like in terms of any type of security updates like to the system itself, there's nothing there. Like the Winchester motherboard, which I'm sure that motherboard is moddable and hackable, but that was just the last one. It came out so much like so late into the console's life cycle that like
Yeah.
all the big teams and players that had the research and development money, it just wasn't worth it to them to get into it.
Yeah, and I did just realize that even if they updated it to patch something, it would kind of be irrelevant because we can launch the older bootloaders anytime we want since that leaked. So there's not much they could probably do, and I think it's been what 2 years since they've given a kernel update. The other updates were just server side.
Oh boy, I'm
Um,
really trying to think. Yeah, I
yeah, I
because
think
I'm sitting here, I'm like, I think during this whole pandemic, that's how I
there's
think
not
of
been one
things.
update.
Pre-pandemic, during pandemic. It's like during this whole pandemic, there has not been a kernel update for the 360.
Yeah, that's shocking, but I mean it makes sense. I guess they're phasing out several online
Hmm.
services, so that kind of makes sense. But I
Yeah,
guess for Winchester, I think most people gave up when they saw that RGH is just not possible.
sure.
They fixed using reset to do that completely in the CPU. It's just completely ignored, and if you manage to trigger it, then so it's kind of hard to explain, at least right now for me because I'm a little tired. But the
Yeah, I
current
have you up late.
theory,
Sorry about that.
yeah, the current theory of what they did is that they're latching the reset signal. So every time the reset signal goes low, they're latching it for a certain amount of time. So it means the pulse will always be too long to cause the glitch to occur. And if you miss that, then it will just be ignored entirely. So whatever type of hack you would have to do for that CPU, it's not going to be a reset glitch. Now it could be something like a brownout glitch with power. It would have
Sure.
to be something totally different because a reset glitch is not going to work. And I think that just discouraged a lot of people from working on it since they'd have to start almost from scratch, and that's no small feat. I mean, the people who figured out RGH, geniuses. Those guys
Hmm.
were absolutely incredibly intelligent.
Hmm. For sure. I do have to ask, I'm just wanting your opinion on this, but in terms of the world of RGH and all that stuff, I guess what's been your favorite thing in terms of either like an accomplishment or a development or what's going on here?
I would have to say my favorite thing was in total may have been the moment that I realized that there was PLL bypass on the Slim. That
Okay.
was probably one of my favorite moments, and just the time developing the 1.2 Slim exploit was so much fun for me. I really enjoyed every second of it, and I think one of the favorite things I've ever done was work on that. That's been absolutely so much fun to work on, and I mean, I was. really surprised that nobody else had found that point previously.
Mhm.
Maybe people just didn't try, didn't believe it was there, but I guess nothing stays hidden forever. But
Sure,
that's
sure.
just been an awesome accomplishment of mine, and I'm really proud of it. And I hope people have been enjoying those firmwares, and I'm really excited to see what other things are in the 360 that may not be found. Maybe they'll be found by me or someone else. Who knows? And
Mhm.
yeah, it's a really cool system for me, and one of the only ones that has my attention.
Mhm, mhm, and that's what, like, that's what, and you're talking about RGH 1.2 on Slims, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and for anybody who doesn't know, this was a type of modification, a variant of the reset glitch hack that was, really only on the fat systems before, and it was like, I mean, Josh, you can always correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to just kinda boil this down here, but you had RGH1, where you were, like, glitching the system and you were able to get it to boot unsigned code, but then after, at least on the fats, after a certain firmware update or kernel update, that's when it ended up getting patched. So if you updated your system stock past that certain kernel update, it couldn't take RGH1. RGH2 came out, but it wasn't as nice for glitching and everything, like glitch times and all that stuff. And then we got 1.2, which is essentially wiring it up, like boiling it down, but like it just resets much faster. The timings are different, and you're wiring it up like a RGH1 system, but you're building a RGH2 image for it.
Yeah, so with the original Fat RGH1, yeah, you were almost exactly spot on there, by the way.
Oh, well,
I
thank
didn't
you.
hear anything wrong. So the RGH1 original hack, it exploited the bootloader called the CD, and and at the point where they exploited, you would slow down right before you exploit the CPU, before you send your pulse of ground. And the reason why, well, it's not ground, sorry, it pulls the signal down low. And the reason why that worked is the previous step was very short. So when the CPU slows down 128 times at the previous post bit, there's enough time to get into the point where we glitch, and then we can speed up and the console will boot. So on the Slim systems, obviously they didn't have PLL bypass, so they could not do that exploit there. And also the main reason for that is the bootloaders were different on the Slims. They used the
Sure.
split bootloaders on the Slims right from the beginning. So that
Hmm.
exploit didn't even work. So they developed RGH2, which slowed down the CPU using something called I2C. I won't ramble on about that. I could go on for
Oh
hours about
god.
that. And it didn't slow down nearly as much. So it was a similar attack. We slow down the CPU, we wait for a post, and then we glitch the CPU, we speed up, and we boot. Then the problem that happened was eventually the FATs also got updated to that split CB
I
to
remember
patch the
that.
RGH1 hack. And the problem was now you have to do RGH2 because if you try to use PLL bypass on a glitch 2 image, the CPU would slow down so much that it would never get into the point where we glitch. It would take so long that the Xbox would reset and try again.
Hmm.
So we couldn't do that. And then 15432, in his crazy ways, tried just putting an artificial delay into the glitch ship code that just delays it for about 410 milliseconds. And that's perfect. So then it slows down, glitches, and continues, just like the old RGH1 hack, except we glitch much earlier in the boot process so we can do everything with much more control and
Gotcha.
especially what we can do.
And that
And
came
yeah, it's an
like
awesome,
the
awesome find.
the cool thing is, I mean, RGH 1.2, it came out like, yes, in my opinion, like so much later into the Xbox 360 modding life cycle. But it was really cool because at the time it was something that was eventually ported over to like all the glitch chips. But even
Yeah,
so, like what was impressive was that it was working on like cheap chips and clone chips as well too. So it's like, oh, you can just pick up a like a $3-4 glitch chip and it works really well.
yeah, and there were a few tricks that they used to do that. And so the team executor relied really heavily on using resistors and capacitors to tune the boot times, which is a good method. But obviously, you
I
have these really complicated chips but
I
you get
remember
very
that though.
fine
I
control.
didn't like that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you remember the dip switches on the CR3 and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I remember all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, it's a good system, but what would happen is, with some time, people found out that you didn't have to do all that. They used different crystals, so at first they were running the glitch at 96 megahertz using the 48 megahertz signal from the board, and you can double any clock signal freely with the way that the glitch chip timing works. And they were doing that, and that was, not too great. I'm sure you remember the wrapping the wire around the X clamp.
God damn it. Yes, I do. You are just
Yeah,
bringing back
just to
all
delay it
oh.
for a few nanoseconds. And that was pretty crazy. But what they started doing is they put faster oscillators on the chips. So, for
Mhm.
example, they would put a 96 megahertz or a 100 megahertz oscillator on the chip, and then you could glitch at 192 or 200 megahertz, and that gave you enough control that you could build good RGH2 timings without needing all those resistors and capacitors. You could ballpark it close enough that it would boot pretty good. Now, of course, the
Sure.
winner of all of this was the Ace V3 with the 150 megahertz crystal, which works at 300. That thing, you have so much control that you can boot any board with no problem on that thing. And the Ace chip
Mhm.
is really great for that reason. But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with
Uh,
you there. Those I didn't like using all the
uh,
caps and all that either.
a lot of that as well too is that was all very much like deep into the heyday of it, and like these chips were being released and revised as there was new developments going
Absolutely.
on. So that's why there was so, I mean, also, okay, a part of it was also, hey, that's how you keep the monetization going, that's how you keep the income coming
Yeah.
in. Like I'm not gonna be oblivious, like I get that. But also all this stuff was kind of, it was just like, hey, as soon as there's a new development, boom, new chip, new method, new chip. So yeah.
Oh yeah, there was rapid progress, and every time somebody made a change to the bootloaders, they'd have to tweak the timing and so on. So,
Hmm.
um, it was a fun time, and I wish I had been around more back then. But the
Yeah,
history of the scene is real awesome.
I was actually gonna ask when you jumped in, because I know, like, I personally, like, I jumped into 316. I was aware of it, but I jumped in like 2011 with a flash DVD drive, and like 2012 with the RGH.
Well, I did mod a console for a friend of mine. I'm pretty sure it was a Corona RGH2. I don't remember, but it was somewhere around 2016, maybe
Okay.
somewhere there. That was the first time I really did anything with the 360, and then I didn't really touch it until about early 2019, when I started repairing them more, and then I started modding them.
Oh
So I'm
wow.
I'm pretty late into the scene, but I find it to be a fascinating console
It
for
is.
whatever reason. So
It,
I've just really liked it, and I really like the approach of putting a chip in and glitching a CPU. That's been so interesting to me. It's not just something like, a BIOS chip that just switches a flash or something, and then
mhm.
it's actually, it's grounding a line on the CPU for a very specific time, and then the CPU acts funny. And to me, that was just very intriguing.
Mhm. No, I totally get you there 100%, because that's where I was at with it as well too. So, I mean, you're like, aside from like the 2016 one, like 2019, okay, that's later than I expected, but
Oh
this
yeah,
even this even kind of confirms a thing to me as well too, where it's just like we're seeing all these developments for not just the Xbox, like you with the 360, but then I've seen stuff on the PSP as well too, with like work that Balika's done, the
yeah.
PS1 and PS2, with not only like, Mecha Pone from Balika, big shout out to him, but then, like free PSX boot from I'm not remembering Brad Lynn, I believe that's it. Brad Lynn, like on the PS1, even just like free DVD boot from CTURT on the PS2. You're seeing so many years later all of these amazing, groundbreaking exploits,
Oh yeah,
developments, but
yeah.
even improvements. And in my opinion, it's very much a thing of, you have all this fresh blood coming in, taking a look at it. There's much better reverse engineering tools, methods available. You have new, like quite literally new brains taking a different look at everything. And also, a lot of the need, or pretty much all the need, and sometimes to monetize it is completely pulled out. So you have people that are doing this just for fun, just as a hobby, and they're going to put all their time and effort and love into it if they really have that mad love for what they're doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think also another factor may be that the type of people using the system is a little different. Nowadays,
Mhm.
I find a lot of people are using the system to play large game libraries that they have, or nostalgia, or things like that. And there's less of an emphasis, I think, on piracy, which is probably an early driver for many systems. Lots of people want to use them for piracy.
Oh yeah.
And of course, that piracy is always a problem, no matter when. But I do think that now, as systems age, the people that get interested come in with different ideas of what they want to do with the system. For me
Mhm.
personally, I just like understanding something and really understanding how it works. So that was really my drive to get into this, was how does this work? Can I make this better? What can I do with it? And I'm sure that's probably the same for lots of other people that develop all those different things. Is they want to understand the hardware and not just use it. And I think that's awesome personally.
Mhm. No, I love it. So like I have Octo, I have mad respect for what you do, and like I mean,
Oh, thank you.
you've
I
seen
hope
what
I
I
didn't
know.
come off too arrogant there.
No, not at all, not at all. Like I tell people, like I've been saying for the last few years, I'm like, you need to put respect on Octo's name. Like,
I
there's been,
appreciate that.
yeah, no, there's been times, and I'm sure you've seen it in public where I'm just like, yeah, no, this dude needs a thanks because like this is like his code that we're using and his new developments and everything. So, yeah, you are like current day right now. You're definitely one of the people who's like keeping the 360 alive in terms of like the modding seat on there and pushing it forward.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, I'm always glad that people can find enjoyment in what I'm doing. That's the whole reason why I distribute. All my code is on GitHub. Everything's out there because I do this because I want to enjoy it and I want others to enjoy it. And I really hope that that's what's happening. And yeah, I really appreciate the kind words. And yeah, there's some other great people working on things. I know Element is always tinkering away with his PCBs. He's always
Oh,
doing some
Jeebus.
awesome stuff. I tell
Yeah,
you, that X
yeah.
Flasher, the first time I saw that dump a big block NAND in 3 minutes, oh man, I jumped out of my chair. I mean, no more coffee breaks.
Yeah, yep, that's true.
Yeah, and then 15432 stuff he's doing even now. I mean, what he's done with RGH3 is incredible.
I wanted to ask you about that. Yes, RGH3, what the hell is going on with this? Just from like an outsider look, and I don't know how much you can reveal, sure. So like if there's not too much, it's all good. But like from what I've seen from the outside looking in, just from like what's been publicly released, this at this point, it's almost getting back to like JTAG style in which you
Oh
just
yeah,
need
absolutely.
wiring. You're programming the NAND in a certain way, and then you're wiring up things, but you're pretty much killing the need for a glitch board.
Oh yeah, you're spot on there. So the for those of you that don't know, the original JTAG, also called the SMC hack, it works with so the SMC in the console has a small Intel processor. It's not like an x86 like your computer. It's an 8051, and it's a very small CPU, and it's inside the South Bridge. And it controls things like the DVD tray, the Ring of Light command, syncing a controller, power on and off, and so on. And that processor loads its software off of the system flash that we can program. So the SMC hack, or JTAG, was a custom program basically that would inject certain commands to the GPU to exploit it. That's a very brief overview of how it works. Obviously, it's very
Sure.
complicated, and I don't even understand the JTAG exploit fully. But the RGH3 is a kind of similar approach. It's running the code on that SMC to glitch the CPU instead of doing it from an FPGA like the Xilinx boards that we currently use. And
Sure.
he's an absolute legend for figuring out how to get that working. There were a few other people involved, but I'm not sure if they want their names out there. But he was the one that put it all together and really made it work. And yeah, he's done amazing work on that.
Hmm.
And so the one limitation that obviously RGH3 had was that the SMC is a processor and not an FPGA. So it was a little bit slower, but he's worked around it. I'm not sure if I can reveal his secrets, but
All good.
he's found a solution, and it's damn reliable. It's nice and fast, and yeah, there'll be some new stuff coming out soon.
I cannot wait for that. I just saw it.
Oh,
I
it's
could not
awesome.
believe it. It's pretty much in game at that point, and it's taken 10 years to get to this point because I
Oh
believe the
yeah,
first RGH that I saw publicly was 2011.
yeah, and I'm actually surprised no one tried this earlier. I would guess the motivation was, with the Slim, with that PLL bypass that I found, we have so much slowdown on the Slim. It's
Hmm.
5 times more than the Fats. So it gets us way more precision. And as of right now, I'm not sure whether he's gotten it to work on the Fats yet because there's not as much precision there. So I'd have to guess the reason it took so long is because there just wasn't the precision in the Fats, and the Slims, we didn't have the PLL bypass.
I'm wondering, I'll ask you on this because this is something not only here, but also with the PS2 scene. I've even thought of this as well. Do you think it could be a thing of monetization? Because by that, I mean, whenever RGH3 drops, that's going to eliminate the need for a glitch board. So now, if this ended up dropping, let's say in like 2012, 2013, it would have completely disrupted the market. At this point, yeah, there's still glitch boards and stuff that are being sold and produced, but it's going to make less of an impact. So the people who would about, 8, 9 years ago who would know this knowledge, who would figure this out, maybe some people even figured it out and kept it completely private just because of, a monetary incentive. But I know I've talked with like Balika, for example, in regards
Yeah.
to uh what was it? Mechapone. That was it, and he was saying before it was something along the lines of, really in short, for anyone who doesn't know, once you install Mechapone on a compatible PlayStation 2, you can really have it so that it's going to play all regions of original PlayStation games, backups of original PlayStation games, region free PlayStation 2 original games, and even backups of PS2 games once you end up setting them up and booting them a certain way. Point being on there is really if Mechapone, he believes some of the work that he had to do was already probably done so many years ago in private, and it might have just been kept private because if this ended up dropping 15, 17 years ago, it would wipe out the mod chip market. Like, there might still be a need for some people, but most people would be perfectly fine with just a software based method that you can install this.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about whether that was. I mean, there's no doubt it would have disrupted sales, and but I'm not really sure if anyone was working on this back then. I haven't really been told much about it,
All right.
but absolutely. I mean, I can imagine. I mean, you had the Team Executor guys, you had the 360 Squirt guys, and you had a few other groups that were working on chips. Some of them mostly popular in Europe or Asia, not so much in the U.S. And yeah, I imagine they would have been a little bit ticked off from losing that. But I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, you still have to buy a NAND programmer, and
Yeah.
I bet Team Executor would have probably developed some QSBs
I
for
was
it, and
Dude,
which would be helpful on PLL. I'll tell you that much.
I was thinking of that actually because I remember even with the JTAG itself, like Team Executor couldn't make a chip for it, but they made quick solder boards that
Right.
made the wiring much cleaner and easier. So they monetized it in that way. It wasn't exclusive to them. They just end up selling a product that, they could make some bucks off that made it easier.
Yeah, and maybe Element will come out with a QSB for that someday. That'd be pretty cool to see, especially that PLL point trips up many people. It's very small, but yeah,
Element, we hope you're listening.
yeah. Yeah, I really think if this had come out, yeah, it would have disrupted things absolutely, but it would have been a huge step forward back then. And I have no doubt that Alexei could have done it back then. I mean, he's a genius, absolutely. He's an
Sure.
absolute genius, and I am more thankful than any could imagine that he was willing to share some of his intelligence with me and teach me some things. And yeah, he's a real bright mind.
For sure. For sure. There's it feels like a lot of the talent that's pushing things forward in the 360 now. It's just a lot of it is just all for the love of it. And there's some really
Absolutely.
bright minds
Yeah.
there, including you, of course. But
No,
yeah,
thank you.
it's I no problem. I love seeing it because I just like the thing is the 360 scene, like modding it. Is it convoluted? Yeah. Is it kind of complex? Yeah. Like, is there not like the most amount of homebrew? Yeah, there's not that much homebrew. But here's the thing: because of the challenge and the weird complexities of, I love it so
Oh,
much.
me too. Absolutely. Yeah, it's awesome to see not only what people can do now, but what they've done in the past. I mean, I've gone out of my way to buy older glitch chips like the old squirt chips and so on, just to get the experience of what it was like to mod the system back in the day. I just find it so much fun, even if we do have better methods these days. I like to see what people were doing back then, and also maybe reverse engineer some of it and have
Mhm.
some fun with it. And the history of the scene is incredible. The things people have done, it's really amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's even how do I say it? It's even just so it's really rewarding doing that, but it's
Yeah.
even I'm sure you collect those chips as well too, just to
Oh
have
yeah.
like that scene history. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I
they're
think
they're
people
they're
think
cool
I'm
little
insane
things.
at this point. I've got a wall in my closet just full of consoles, and everyone is different in some way,
Makes
and
me very
chips
happy to
and
hear
things.
about
And
that. Yeah.
I mean,
Don't worry, dude. I was doing the same shit. So, but I'm also not normal, so I'll fully acknowledge that.
yeah, some people collect silverware, some people collect, I don't know, little things. I collect Xbox consoles.
Yeah, yeah, and that is what actually okay, the thing is, I collect consoles, which gets dangerous, and that is
Oh
why I
yeah.
will refuse to get into arcade hardware because it's big. It's very big, more to maintain. It can be expensive as well, so I'm just like, no, 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 no. Like the arcade hardware is cool, I respect it, but dude, I wouldn't even get one of those like arcade one ups and like mod it from the inside out because I'm like, no, because I know myself. That is a
Yeah.
slippery slope. No.
Oh yeah, that's piqued my interest too. Those machines, and I've even at some point considered, buying one and putting totally custom hardware in it. Like obviously not a vintage machine. I would never desecrate something like
Oh
that,
my
but
god.
either some type of modern, kit that you can build, or something that's completely destroyed that's been parted out, something like that, and just build it up with new hardware. But I
Dude,
know I agree with you. I would do the same thing. Before you know, it will be everywhere. I mean, I look around my room right now and I can see consoles everywhere.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I share with that.
Yeah, oh my god, there was one thing I saw that was horrific. Like this was a while ago. My girlfriend had ended up sending me a listing, I think it was on Facebook. And it was for a oh my god, I don't even want to say it out loud. I'll say it was for a Marvel versus Capcom 2 arcade cabinet. Like already
Oh yeah.
an arcade favorite, sought after game and all that stuff. And the thing was broken, but it wasn't just broken, it was unfinished because the guy's like, yeah, I bought the thing. And then he took out all the original parts, like the
Jeez.
PCB and stuff. And then he ended up putting like a Raspberry Pi in there, but he didn't finish the shit. And
Oh Jesus.
I flipped out when I saw that. I'm just like, no, what the fuck? If you're going to do that, build an arcade cabinet yourself or get one of those like arcade one ups and just swap all the guts out. But you don't take an original, especially a classic like fucking Marvel vs. Capcom 2. You don't do that. That's
Oh,
pretty much like
absolutely.
going into Egypt, finding a sarcophagus, and saying, oh, this dead body in here is gross, and just throwing it out the back and then putting flowers in there because they're prettier.
Oh
It
man.
gets me heated.
Oh man, I agree with you on that. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen that image of the guy that took the Xbox original prototype tower and like put something
Oh
in
my
it. Oh,
god.
that pissed me off. And
Oh my
oh
god.
man.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's do we need to, I think we need to summarize that for the masses here who are uninitiated on this.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that.
I you can fill in details if needed on here, but from what I remember, so the original Xbox when it was being developed, the original development kits, maybe not the original ones, but the first ones, like some of the first official ones, the alpha
Oh
kits,
shit, I found
they
it.
were pretty much just like big desktop computers. that then had some specialized hardware in there as well too, and it was mainly the software that was customized because it was a workable Xbox. It was essentially it was an Xbox built into a computer, and that's what they were using to develop on them before they had the final Xbox hardware, like in that form factor that we all know and love. Um, so I believe what happened with these was they were still good workstations at the time. So when they were done being used, I believe Microsoft just ended up reformatting a lot of them with, Windows of some kind. I don't even think it was XP. And they were just selling them to employees like, hey, if you want this, I don't know, 100, $200, something like that. And there was a kid, I want to say he was like 14 or 15 years old, where his dad, like true story, not just like lying here, but it's like his dad worked at Microsoft and he had one of these alpha kits. So he took all the parts out, all the original parts, and he ended up building like the most subpar desktop in there and just ripped apart this piece of history that there could have still been something important on that hard drive that could have been salvaged, even if you had to use data forensic tools on there. And there were some people who were just like, oh yeah, this is great. And then of course people like us are like, what are you doing? What's
Yeah,
wrong
what the
with you?
hell?
Because
Oh yeah. I mean,
the
even put a
computer wasn't
card
even
reader where the disk drive is supposed to be. I mean,
the
Jesus.
I don't even remember the specs, but it wasn't even anything impressive was the worst part because it's like, you're working with like a 14, 15-year-old budget.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, but desecrating a hardware like that is just shocking. And I'm sure somewhere someone's done that with the 360s proto as well, with the Power Mac G5s that were used. I mean, just think about
Yep.
those. Um,
I
oh
mean,
man,
I've seen people build a I no, I think it was the original. I want to say somebody ended up building a sleeper PC into like an original Xbox dev kit.
oh man,
So they're already desecrating that, but I think they were even like drilling parts of it and
oh
everything as
Jesus
well
Christ.
too. I'm sorry. I'm forcing pain upon you.
Yeah, that has me messed up. I mean, I'm not the biggest general collector out there. Some people are like, it has to be sealed, it has to be, you can't open it. That's not
No, I
so
want to
much
use the
me,
shit.
right? But yeah, and not only that, but some people say you can't even open it, like to change thermal paste, any maintenance that's needed, right? I'm not really like that. But the moment you start taking something rare and modifying it just to modify it, that just
Hmm.
gets me angry. No reason
Hmm.
to do that, especially if it's part of history. It's something a rare item. It's one thing if they made 18 billion, but if it's a rare item, don't ruin it like that.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. But even so, I try and be more careful about that too. Because funny enough, I think it was maybe because I was looking forward to this episode. But today, like I was walking my dog, and I had thought of this where I was like, oh yeah, like 10 years ago, and I've done a video like this before, and it's private, like off the channel right now. But it was like like a fake, like how to fix up the red ring of death on a system because I had like a broken 360 and I pretty much just like destroyed the system, drowned it in water and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, like
Oh, like a meme video?
yeah, exactly. It's like
Okay.
10 and it's like okay, like 10 years ago when 360s were so readily produced and they kept dying off and you can buy a broken one for 5-10 bucks or something and like there was no shortage of them because they kept just rolling off the assembly
Yeah.
line. Okay, yeah, kind of funny, but now it's like if that same thing happened, like if I had even yeah, because the 360 is not rare. There's so many that
Oh,
are
yeah.
out there. But even so, I even thought of it now, especially with all the right to repair stuff. I'm like, I'd feel kind of bad if I did that. Like, if anything, I'd more just want to, like, if I had a system that red ringed, if I wasn't going to repair it properly, I would at least want to keep it on the side for something if I'm going to use it for parts or even get it into the hands of somebody who would make better use of it. But I wouldn't feel good just, like, ripping it apart and destroying it just for fun, especially because also they're not produced anymore.
Oh, absolutely. I'm with you there. I mean, it can be funny for a quick laugh, but yeah, if it's something rare, can you imagine even that? How horrible that would be. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've never really been entertained by that type of content. Maybe I'm weird, but
Sure.
the idea of seeing something destroyed for me just it's doesn't have much value for me. I like to fix everything ever since I was a small boy. Even when I was a small boy, I always was trying to fix everything. And now that I've grown up, I'm the same way. I like to fix everything I have myself, from my car to my computer to everything.
That's really
And
good.
so I don't like seeing things destroyed because I know it could be used in a better way. And I guess that
Mhm.
explains why I have so much stuff.
Mhm. No,
Yeah.
I mean that's good. That's making use of what you have, and even just like even if you're not going to use it, like you can refurbish it and
Yeah, or
donate
give
it.
it to
Get
someone
get
who
it
needs it, right?
exactly. Get to someone who's going to respect it and care and actually utilize it. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. That's why like even when I like pick up like consoles from like game shops and all that, I like almost look at it as like a rescue mission. Like I can save you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, depending on what it is, saving might even mean let's use this to help save something else. I mean, I have a box
Hmm.
full of boards that have had almost all their parts removed from them because they've been used to save other systems. And that is a
Yes.
great thing because there are many great parts that don't have to be thrown out. You can reuse them, you can repair, and some parts even can be used to build your own stuff, which is a lot of fun.
Hmm. Yeah. Even real quick, I want to bounce back to this because it's from almost like an hour ago. I know when we were talking about consoles at thrift shops and everything, dude, at least it is definitely a location.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know where you said you're at, it's kind of dry. Where I'm at, it's kind of dry with thrift shops and such. From what I know, you go like the Pacific Northwest, you can get some amazing stuff over there.
Oh,
I
really?
know, like, shout out to Adam Corlick. He went to pretty much because they have specialized stuff. They have like a Goodwill like center, for example, where you end up going through stuff that was just recently it was just recently donated from all across the country, and you pay per pound, like for how heavy it is. It's not the value.
Wow.
So it's like he got an Xbox One for like $5. His friend got an Xbox One X for a little more than that because it's heavier. Um, Now, it's not like those crazy deals, but like my girlfriend lives up in Canada. I visited her recently and I went to a thrift shop there and I've never so in my area, like I can find like Wii's and I used to be able to find Xbox 360s and PS3s, like I never really saw them. I was shocked
Yeah,
when
me
it's like
neither.
there was okay, so you're gonna have the same thing here then. So I went there once and I saw a DS Lite. I got it. It was like 20 bucks Canadian. Great. I went there another time. They had a Wii, they had a 360. They were like pretty much it was like pulling them out of corners. They had like 5 or 6 PS3s.
Wow.
And I was just freaking out. I was like, "Oh god, I can't take them all. No, I can't. I no. I really can't take them all, but I really want to because they were all really fairly priced too. They were like 30, 35, 40 Canadian.
Wow. Yeah, that's not bad. Oh
Yeah.
man, I would love to see more things like that around, but it's never
Yeah,
seen it anywhere I've been.
it's all about the location, it's about the shop, it's about then the clientele who actually goes there, and it's even the people who know what they're doing. Like for example, the guy who did the electronic stuff there, I didn't meet him, but I could tell like he fairly priced his stuff. He knew what it was. Like for example, he put like the 360 out on the racks, but he put a note on there saying the hard drive and the cables and everything were in the back. So he separated all that stuff.
Wow.
Even like with other consoles, he knew like this power supply goes here, and he would bag them up and like tie them together and everything. So whoever he was, like he was fairly pricing his stuff. He respected it. He did some tests, I'm sure, but he knew enough about everything he was working with.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know a friend of mine, his name is well, he goes by Dr. House if he's watching, hello. But he has this lady that he met off some I think Kijiji or some site like that. I apologize if I'm butchering your story, but and she said I think her husband works at a salvage yard and he gets so many consoles from her. It's insane.
Hmm.
He's gotten like come home with a car full of consoles, and I'm just thinking, oh my god, why
That's
don't we
amazing.
have this in the U.S.? I would love to do that.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely
there's
insane.
maybe the closest I knew of a person like that. It wasn't with like a salvage yard or anything, but there was a person I knew. This when I worked at a game shop, so this is about like 2009, 2010. He was cleaning up houses and all that stuff. So I mean, he found crack pipes, he found needles. He showed me all these photos where it's like he had found like a DVD case and he opened it and there was just like a giant crack rock in there. Um, yeah, and even I asked, like, "What happened there?" He's like, "Well, I laughed, I took a picture, and then I closed it and immediately called the police because, like, hey, I need someone to take this. I'm cleaning out this apartment." But he found a lot of consoles. Now, unfortunately, because this was when 7th generation was hot, And he was disappointed by this. He never found seventh generation consoles, but he found a lot of Xboxes. He found PlayStation 2s. I don't really think GameCubes. The closest he got to like 360 and PS3 was people would leave behind cables. So he would regularly, because, they're cleaning out this stuff, they're either throwing it away or they don't care where it goes. So he was regularly coming in and selling us most like original Xboxes. And even if we gave him like
Nice.
$5 for it, he's like, well, I don't care. I paid nothing for this thing, and I get to, hang out with you all, see my buddy who works at their shop, and get a discount when I buy games. So yeah, here, give me $5-10 for this Xbox I found. That's lunch for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but at the risk of also finding drugs, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen any system with drugs in it, but I know a friend of mine has. I think he found weed in an Xbox. I don't know how I got it
Interesting.
in the Xbox, but
Interesting. I
yeah,
know apparently the expansion port bay on the PlayStation 2 Fat, a lot of people hid weed in the back.
really. Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's been people who are just like, I had no idea what that thing was for. I just hid my weed in there for my pets.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh god, I love it. So I did actually. There was one thing I wanted to discuss with you, which was in regards to, we're actually going to bring it forward now to the Xbox One and the Xbox Series. But recently, for the 20th anniversary of Xbox overall, Microsoft ended up, I believe, it was 76. They ended up pushing 76 new titles from the Xbox 360 and original Xbox onto backwards compatibility, so they work on Xbox One, One S, One X, Series S, Series X, and of course they're digitally available as well too, which is great. The only downside that came with that is they also said immediately after the announcement, "Hey guys, this is it. We're not making any other games backwards compatible. Sorry about that."
Yeah, yeah, I did see that, and I mean, it's awesome. I don't know how many. I don't know the entire amount of games that have been backwards compatible so far, but it's been a pretty good amount, especially the popular games. Um,
Hmm.
at least all the ones that I've had any interest in are available there, and I mean, it's awesome that they're doing that to begin with. Obviously, I mean, for example, the OG Xbox. Okay, yes, it has some platform in line with the new ones. They're both x86, but obviously the new ones are 64-bit. It's a completely different system, different
And
software. But
the
the
the other thing.
360 too is just so different.
The other thing with it as well too is when it comes to licensing and legality and how this is built as well, it's like the original Xbox on the Xbox 360, like that was a software based emulator that was on
Yeah,
the Xbox 360 that could do all of
I'm
that.
amazed they got that working as well as they did.
Yes, 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 but and that's beyond impressive to me. Um, but the thing is on there, and even like, going back, PlayStation 2 that plays all PS1 games, because it essentially had, the most of them had pretty much PS1 hardware built into
Yeah,
them, and it was done there. The thing is with the Xbox One and beyond, all of these games have to be, for lack of a better term, recompiled or even like republished. So it's not just building an emulator and you pop in your disc and you're playing it from there. You
yeah,
have to download. You don't play it off the disc at all. You have to download a Xbox One or Series specific build of that game, which means the game has to be republished, which means even if the game technically works perfectly, you have to have all the licensing done up on that game before you're putting it on the storefront.
yeah, and it really shows how powerful that Power PC chip was in the 360. That they probably tried and found out an emulator just wasn't feasible. Um, and I mean, I think it's a great thing that they did as much as they did to get the backwards compatibility working. And I know Sony did this too. I mean, obviously the PS1 and PS2, but I think my favorite solution is the PS3, the original FATs, where they had the two chips combined into one and on the board of the PS3. That was just, to me, just hilarious that they did that. And I think backwards compatibility is a great thing to have that support. But obviously, I guess we do have to end somewhere. I mean, the 360 is what, 16 years old. It can't keep going
I
on
don't want to
forever.
think
So
about that, but yes, it is. I don't want to think
yeah,
about that.
it makes sense that they're ending support for it. But it's great that they've published games while doing that. It'd be one thing if they just said no, no more, right? But that they've put games up to as a last kind of hurrah for these are our backwards compatible games is I think it's cool, but it's definitely the end of an era.
Yeah, and I think that's where the disappointing fact of it is for me because I mean I'm even just looking at just the recent release here, and I'm
Yeah.
seeing like all the Fear games are up on there, all the Dead or Alive games are on there. Some of them are kind of questionable, like okay, like Disney Universe or Disney's Chicken Little. Like I mean also like the licensing on that as well too. Like geez, that must have taken because it's Disney, but then you
Oh
have like
yeah.
the Atagi games for the original Xbox. Like Manhunt, all the Max Paynes are on there, so like that stuff is really cool. It's just disappointing that yeah, a lot of it because when it came out at the end, when they made their statement, I believe they said something like, yeah, it just comes from like time and technical resources, but even licensing as well too. And I guess I just wish that they would still go on because we're just starting
Oh
the
yeah.
Xbox Series generation. So it's disappointing knowing that, hey, all the backwards compatibility stuff that we have right now, the Xbox and Xbox 360 games that work on Xbox One and beyond, that's all you're getting. No more.
Yeah, it's definitely a sad thing. I guess I look at it as the upside being now that, it seems that both Microsoft and Sony, for that matter, are using a common platform, being x86 64. The backwards compatibility will be easier to do in the future. So I guess they're just trying to move their resources to better distribute them. So I understand why they're making the decision, but yeah, it is pretty sad to see that there will be lots of games that will be left pretty much unplayable on the modern systems.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And even I know with the both of these, well, the Xbox and Xbox 360 on these systems, like USB drives cannot or USB peripherals cannot be emulated on
yeah,
the on the Xbox One and beyond for all these older systems. So if you have like your saves on a USB drive, you can't bring them over. Any of the Rock Band or Guitar Hero games, that's out of the question. You can't play those on there either. So if anything, I mean, it does kind of stress as well too. And this is even what I've said. If you want to play original Xbox games accurately and not worry about compatibility, get yourself an original Xbox. Same thing
right.
with 360. You want to play your games, you want to play your library, not worry about compatibility and all that stuff. Get yourself a 360. And that's even something I've said where it's like there's been people who have picked up a 360, mod it and everything, but even the stock one, you can play original Xbox games on
Yeah,
there. But I tell people it's like you're not going to be able to play all of them, but that's more of a technical factor. Even if you use the hacked backwards compatibility files, it will help, but you're never going to be able to play all of them because of a technical issue. And I had told people time and time again when this was rolled out on the Xbox One, people were saying, "Oh, just get the Xbox One and you can play all of your old games." And I was like, "Nope, you will like because of
that's not how it
licensing.
works.
That's even harder when it comes to licensing. That's even
Right.
harder than the technical aspect there. I'm like because of licensing, the Xbox One and beyond will never come close to knocking out a ton of the original or Xbox 360's libraries. Like you just and that's the games that are on there that are rebuilt for the system, they're going to run and they're going to have all the really nice enhancements and stuff, such as like frame doubling. So a lot of games that were running at 30 frames are going to run at 60. You're going to have stuff
Yeah.
playing at like you'll have original Xbox games that can play at native 4K or even 360 games, and that's really cool to see. I love all those enhancements. So if you want to play an enhanced version, you can always do that. But if you're trying to get, your accuracy and not worry about compatibility and stuff, you're going to have to get the original hardware, just point blank.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, I'm not the hugest gamer, as you probably know. I've only played a handful of different games, but for me personally, I mean, if I'm going to fire up an older game that I've played, I would much rather do it on period correct hardware, whether that's an older console or just an older tower of some kind. I've always been the type that I want to experience an older game on this hardware it was made for because I think it
Mhm.
makes the experience better. But that's just me personally, for my opinion. I'm sure lots of the updated titles are fantastic, but yeah, it's not been the biggest appeal for me personally.
I
And in
understand.
addition, the modern consoles just have not interested me that much, especially since they're so similar to computers. There's not really been a huge differentiating factor except maybe, exclusive games and things and probably the online. But other than that, there's not much that has really interested me in those systems, so I
Yeah,
tend to
well,
gravitate to computers anyway.
Well, even like what you were saying about the architecture and stuff on these newer systems and reallocating, that is actually one thing I had wished for. Like, I hated that the eighth generation systems were not backwards compatible, aside from the Wii
Yeah.
U, that was backwards compatible with the Wii. Um, but when it came down to it for the Xbox One and PS4, those were not backwards compatible with the older systems. And I said, I don't want to redo this again when the new systems come out. So
Right.
it's nice that they're going to just stick to this and they're really just treating it like a PC spec. So if you have a Xbox One game, it's going to run the best on Xbox Series X, but it's going to be playable on the hardware from 2013. That's still fine. And then same with the PS5, that deals more with backwards compatibility, but still, even with the platform difference and such on there, you can play your PS4 games on the PS5. And I don't have Xbox Series yet, but I do half jokingly say this. I'm like, the PlayStation 5 is the best PS4 that you can buy at this point. Because I like most of the games I play on PS5 are just PS4 games. And I'm like, that's fine by me because it's not like a PS4 Pro that screams at me when you're just sitting at a pause menu, and it plays all the games better and they look better as well too. So I see no issue with that.
Absolutely. And I think it also has to do with that, the development of systems seems to be not as quick as it was. When you look at the jump in technology from the original Xbox to the 360, and then the jump from the 360 to the One, well, yes, it's a big jump, but the jump from the OG to the 360 was way bigger. And I mean,
Hmm.
hardware in the early 2000s especially evolved so fast, and then it evolved again towards 2010. But since then, I can't say I've seen huge leaps in the way games run. I mean, obviously they look a little nicer and they have ray tracing and but it's overall a similar experience. Whereas if you look back throughout the period between maybe 1998 to 2011, you see that the experience changes so drastically
Yep.
throughout the years, and the hardware changed and the software changed so much that it really was an issue to keep a consistent experience. But now that we've kind of settled down a little bit more, I mean, the operating systems are compatible, so the games are going to be compatible. And I mean, it really shows the point that now, it is nice to have that ability to run all those games on the newer systems without any problems. That's obviously awesome.
Hmm.
But I do think if there comes another big technological leap, then probably that will change, as there'll probably need to be enough changes to the system itself that it will be hard to run the old games. But maybe I'm wrong and they'll figure something out. I mean, all those engineers are pretty brilliant.
Hmm. I think the nice thing that I've seen this generation has been like just starting off in the ninth gen here is that there's been such a focus on the performance. So really like
Yeah.
not just graphics, but really just the frame rate and the importance of the SSDs that are on the new systems. And like that is something that has been important to me. So is it perfect? No, but looking at it, I absolutely love that the focus is more performance there and less of like, hey, let's make this as photorealistic as possible. It's like, no, 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 let's actually make this like real fun to play and have it
Oh,
feel
absolutely.
nice when you're like playing a shooter like at 30 frames compared to 60 frames, or even screw that, take it up to 120 frames. It's a big difference. I've talked about like Destiny 2 on here before, where Destiny 2 pissed me off because, well, I mean, I haven't played it for a few months. I think there's some more bullshit going on with it. That's with more the game environment itself. But when I went from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2, I was pissed because I'm like, this plays like the same game. It literally starts out the first 2 hours like the
Yeah,
same
I've
as the
heard
first
those
Destiny.
those
Yeah,
complaints.
yeah. But then when I got my PS5, when I played the PS5 build of Destiny 2 that played at 60 frames, I'm like, oh my God, this is how Destiny should have been. This feels like a new game to me now. And I actually started truly enjoying Destiny 2 just because it felt so nice at that point.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, I mean, I don't see how graphics can get that much better. I mean, obviously they can look more realistic, but maybe I'm the only one that thinks computer generated images that looked exactly like real life might look a little disturbing to me. Maybe that's just me, but every time they show some of those demos of ultra realistic rendering, it just always looks off and kind of like I'm having a ruse shown at me. Like it doesn't look
Hmm.
authentic. So I kind of actually prefer the way that it looks now, where it looks realistic and nice, but it's not over the top. So I agree with you. The emphasis on performance is great, especially in loading times. I can't
Hmm.
stand loading times, whether it's my computer booting up or anything. I want things to be done now, like, and
Sure.
so that type of thing is obviously awesome. Going from a hard drive to an SSD for all the storage is massive, and yeah, that's going to make everything better. And obviously, the improved processor, better frame rates. Yeah, that's awesome. But I can't say that I would really think there's much more graphics development required. I would say the next goal should be more towards let's make everything run smoother, let's make it run cooler and quieter, use less power. That's honestly where I would be looking because I can't see much of the graphics that need improvement. Even things like GTA 5 look great in my
Hmm.
view. I can't see many faults with GTA 5 when you have the settings turned up, and that's a game from what 2014,
2013 is when it came out.
2013,
Yeah,
right?
because it came out like 1 or 2 months before the eighth gen came out.
Okay, yeah, and there were like
Yeah,
two versions or something. It was confusing. I'm
yeah.
still waiting on GTA 6. I don't know where the hell that is.
No, we're gonna get Jesus Christ, we don't GTA. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I was gonna say though, when it came to the photorealistic stuff, I've noticed as I've gotten older, I prefer art style more because I'm not saying like I don't want photorealistic because when I'm talking about art style, like Super Mario 64 still looks good to me.
yeah,
And it's not realistic by any means. It's not,
yeah,
but I
it's a
just like
game,
how it looks. Yes.
right?
But then I'm thinking of photorealistic stuff, and there's a lot of games where when they come out, they're very much a product of the time. Like this
Right,
looks
right,
so realistic, it looks so good. When you go back to it 8 years later, it doesn't really look that great. You see all the faults with it, and a lot of the new tech and groundbreaking stuff behind it just looks super dated and doesn't age super well.
right.
However, when you look at another game, like I was even thinking of this with like graphical jumps, like take Metal Gear Solid 1998 on PS1, compare it to Metal Gear Solid 2 2001 on PS2. Huge leaps and bounds, huge differences. And that I would say was, a pretty realistic looking game. But even now, because of the art style and the atmosphere created and crafted with that game, it still looks good. Can you tell it's a game? Yes. Does it look super realistic now by today's standards? No. But you could see what they were doing and it doesn't look bad even
Yeah.
20 years later.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. I mean, it's a matter of I think if the game is fun to play and the art style suits the game, that's more important than whether it looks real to me. If the way
Hmm.
that it looks is fun and makes the game work, I don't know how to describe it well. I probably sound like a retard here, but I think if the art style really fits the way the game is and the story is, that is much more important than having it just look exactly like real life. At
Hmm.
least for me. I mean,
Sure.
I can enjoy many types of games where the graphics are lower. But if the game is a good game, I'll enjoy it just as much as I'll enjoy a modern game. Because, I'm not trying to watch a movie here and look at tiny details. I'm trying to play the game.
For sure. For sure. And then even once you're in the midst of the action, everything, you're not paying attention to all the little details.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I do kind of have this like near the end because I think it'd be good to kind of wind down here. But I
Yes.
know you've said a few times you're not really a gamer, but like we've talked about games and all that. And I guess I'll ask you, like, what games are you currently playing, if anything?
So actually, I am currently about, I would say, maybe 30% through a replay of Grand Theft Auto 4, which is one of my favorite games of all times. I know a lot of people didn't like the driving physics and stuff, but I actually loved that game, and it was one of the first games that I ever played. So I'm actually replaying that game on period correct hardware on a old Core 2 quad and an ATI 3870 X2 video card. That's what I
Hmm.
had at the time, and enjoying it. It's been a nice blast from the past.
So wait, so you're playing on PC?
Yes, yes, I
Oh
have
my
played the
god.
360 version, but I actually enjoyed the PC version more, for
Mhm.
whatever reason.
I played it a bit on PC. I had fun with like the mods and stuff on there. At one point, I was driving around as an elephant, like literally an elephant in
Oh
a
man.
convertible.
Yeah, I haven't done too much modding of the game, but I like the story. I thought it was much better than GTA 5 story, and obviously causing random mayhem is lots of fun in the game. And
It was quite a mature story in Grand Theft Auto 4. I
yo, yeah,
enjoyed it, but it was and I need to give it another play. I think it's available on well 360 of course, but also like Xbox One, Xbox Series. So I'll probably play it
yeah.
on like Xbox One X. But
Horribly
I
optimized game though. I mean,
on PC,
oh
yes.
yeah, yeah. It was
Yes.
done great on the consoles, but on PC, I mean, oh geez,
Mhm.
don't know
Yeah,
what they were thinking there.
I've only beat it once, and I remember I was definitely one of those people that was so torn. I'm like, even I think I even like did a written review of it, and I was like, this game is really good, but at the same time, I don't want to go back to it. I don't know why, and I do know
Really,
the physics just felt so floaty and weird to me. But the game looked damn good at the time, and it was definitely hype.
really, I actually love the driving physics. I
I
always thought
don't.
the arcade style was too like perfect.
Hmm.
And I kind of like the way that the cars kind of slid around a bit, and it was more like it would be in the real world if you drove at those speeds. Obviously, in a game, it looks way slower, but I actually quite enjoyed the physics. So, but it does
Gotcha.
seem to be the common conclusion that it was not right, and obviously they
Hmm.
reverted with GTA 5. But I
Yes.
actually really
Yes.
enjoyed it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I'm impressed that you're using period correct hardware on PC of all things. So props to you on that.
Yeah, it actually runs pretty decent on there. Once you just got to find the settings that work best for your hardware, and I've got it overclocked a bit, but
For sure.
it binds together the whole experience to me to be using the system that I originally played that game on, and it just pulls it all together, and I really enjoy that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know at one point I'd seen a video Scott the Woz did about emulation, and
Ah,
even when
yes.
it's talking about period correct stuff, he did bring up a good point where he said it's just even the controller will make a big difference. Like emulation's not bad, but like he played super I think it was Super Mario Kart on an emulator. He's like, "Oh, this isn't anything special. What's up with this?" But then he played it on Super Nintendo with a Super Nintendo controller and it just clicked. And it was like, "Oh, this feels good. I understand now. This makes sense."
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and hmm. Yeah, I don't know what it is with me, but I cannot aim for shit on a controller at all. I really don't know why. I
I
just suck at it.
I
Keyboard
know
and mouse
people
I
that
can
are like that.
aim, but for some reason I overcompensate everything, and I just don't know why. So maybe
Factually,
that's part of the
like
reason why I've enjoyed the PC version more.
sure, factually, controllers are not as accurate as keyboard and mouse. Keyboard and mouse is going to be the most accurate, and dare I
Yeah.
say, it's even easier as well because it's not like you don't need the aim assist on there. You're not, using an inaccurate control. Like I love controllers, but I'm just acknowledging their faults there. That is why console games do have aim assist. That's why if you plug a
Yeah.
controller into a PC and play a game on there, if it has control compatibility, you're probably going to have aim assist enabled by default on that. But when it comes to PC, like with a keyboard and mouse, it's more accurate and it is easier. Like that's factual there.
Yeah, and I think racing games are real good on a controller versus a keyboard, though. That's
Oh
I think
yeah.
maybe the exception to the rule is because you get the fine steering control instead of having to tap the A key like every 2 seconds perfectly. You know.
Also, I don't know. For me, I like the vibration features on controllers, and my keyboard and mouse just does not vibrate.
Yeah, I think when done right, I can enjoy them. But I can't remember the name of the game, but there was one game where it was way overdone. The controller was vibrating too strongly and too much, and I just turned it off because it was just annoying.
Sure.
But yeah,
I
some
know
games have done it real well.
on controllers, I do know people who play competitively have disabled vibration on their controllers. Some people
No
even
doubt.
take out they mod their controllers by taking out the rumblers on there to lighten it. But even so, the people who don't modify their controllers, they will disable vibration just because they're trying to aim and be precise with a controller. and their controller is shaking in their hand. They don't want that. So competitively, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I'm actually curious, when you have to aim precisely, like, do you have a specific method that you use to do that?
I mean,
Because
have you ever seen Halo Claw?
I don't think so.
Oh god, let me see if I can look up a video about this. And this isn't even really specifically for aiming on here, but it's more just so you can do multiple things. Like, well, so you could aim, so you could do other commands, but not have to lift up any of your fingers or move them
Oh,
around all that much.
interesting.
Yeah, so I'll like send you that. There's a few photos here, and anybody who's checking this out, just seriously, just go to Google Images, look up Halo Claw. It's an ugly looking way of handling the controller, but like it actually works for people who know what they're doing with it.
Wow.
Yeah, and it makes sense because the main benefit of Halo Claw is that you can press the face buttons and you can aim. So you can press the A button to jump while also aiming. You can do those two at once because you're using like a thumb on the right thumbstick and your index finger probably on the A button. So you're just able to do both of them at the same time. You don't have to move your thumb from the
Interesting.
face buttons to the thumbstick.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. I might have to give that a try because
Oh
oh,
god.
I've definitely been in that place where I'm, using the button. I'm like, oh crap, gotta move the view.
Yep. Yep. Introducing you to Halo Claw. What have I done?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm gonna try that out. That's I've never seen that before.
I hope it works out well for you.
Yeah. So what games are you playing?
Oh boy. Let's see. We didn't have to get on this. It's fine, just because I would have ranted a bunch. But I've been playing the Grand Theft Auto 3, the Trilogy Definitive Edition.
Ah, what are your thoughts on
Um,
that?
it boots. Grand Theft Auto 3 is my all-time favorite game. I mean, I'm hoping by the time this episode comes out, I'll either have a video about this or it'll be coming out shortly after. But it's just, even at one point, so this came out at like the same time there was the big Animal Crossing update and the DLC, and my girlfriend's like, "Hey, you can play Grand Theft Auto, and we can like sit here. I'm gonna enjoy Animal Crossing." And like she's like telling me about like all the new updates and stuff that are there, and like, "Oh, yeah, I could do this and this and this." And I'm like, I should be like, I was excited getting into Grand Theft Auto 3, and I'm playing it, and I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, I want what you have with Animal Crossing. Like, that's what I want right now. And she even asked me, she's like, "How is it? Like, are you liking it?" And I sat there, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if this is good. I don't know if I like it. It's something that resembles Grand Theft Auto 3,
But not
and it
quite.
and it boots. Like, those are my thoughts on it so far. I can have fun with it, but my god, like there's also a lot of stuff that has been really messed up there with the art style, with the performance, with the sense of direction that was happening here. And it's like, it's when you have somebody who's not skilled do a thing and they try way too hard to overcompensate for their lack of skill. But I also don't think it's fully lack of skill with this development team. I can also tell this is a very rushed product.
Yeah, and I think I shot you a picture there. The joke about the tough nut donuts having the
Oh,
nut on top, and then they just smoothed it into a circle. And
yeah, yup. There was that. There was the
oh, that had
AI
me laughing.
upscaling and everything with like any text in game. So a lot of text is completely different or it's
Yeah,
misspelled or what have you. Yeah.
because if
Yeah.
you've played those 3D universe Grand Theft Auto games, you know that there's corners everywhere. Every curve is a corner.
Yeah.
So when they probably ran their algorithms to get rid of all the corners, it just smoothed everything,
That's what people
and
are
it
saying.
went
Yeah.
too
Well,
far.
even some stuff like I was in a mission, like I just did a Ray mission in
Ah,
Grand Theft
yeah.
Auto 3 where you have to go into the bathroom and you're talking with Ray. And I noticed this. There's like because it's a bathroom, there's like four mirrors in there. And in the reflection, there was bricks, giant bricks in the reflection, and like red bricks. I'm like, where are these from? There's nothing red inside the bathroom. There's nothing red. Where did this come from?
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I just saw it, like, literally, I was capturing gameplay, like, right before I was talking to you.
Oh man, that's hilarious. I don't know how that would even happen.
I don't know either. I don't, because I'm not a
Maybe
developer
it was
on this. I
some
don't.
Easter egg that like got pulled through or something.
Jesus Christ, it better not be. It was bricks, Octo. It was bricks.
Oh jeez, that's
Yeah.
something.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the other games I've been playing, for anybody who's listened for a while, I'm still doing my Ring Fit adventure, like getting, getting work, like a good workout with that. Still hate the dragon, but it's fine. I also played, I've been playing a little bit with my girlfriend. I've been playing Mario Party Superstars, which was really fun, and I think they kind of just did like, it's kind of just like a greatest hits and like a really well done version of Mario Party, which is kind of what people were hoping for from Super Mario Party without that one being a greatest hits. So there's been that. And then the last game I played, which like I got introduced to this at an arcade, like there was a couple arcades that we had gone to. And Octo, have you heard of Taiko or Taiko no Tatsujin?
Ah, no.
Oh my god. Okay, so if you've ever been to an arcade, have you seen like a big cabinet with giant drums on it?
I actually have not been to an arcade. I actually,
Okay, well we got to
growing
fix
up,
that.
I had no video games at all.
Oh
I
god,
didn't
I'm
get
so sorry.
introduced to any of this stuff until really my health problems started and I was home a lot more. Then I
Sure.
started getting more into electronics and gaming and all this. But before then, no, I didn't have any video games at all, so not too experienced there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. We'll have to fix that at one point. But when it comes to Taiko, I mean, people can look up Taiko, Taiko, or Taiko no Tatsujin, and it is just,
Yeah, I'm
we had
looking
been to
now.
a couple. Yeah, we've been to a couple arcades. I'd always seen it. I always kind of shied away. I'm like, I don't want to make a fool of myself in public. And my girlfriend's like, "Yo, okay, we're playing this. Like, you've never played it. We're playing this." I played it and I wanted more. It was like a drug. It was so fun.
Really?
And several $100s later, I now have my own Switch setup where it released digitally in the US, but not physically. So I had to import Drum and Fun from, it's a UK import because I can tell like with the rating and stuff. I got a second Japanese drum. So like Drum and Fun comes with a drum. I got a second drum. I got a Japanese import of the other two like musical adventures that are on one cartridge. And then on top of that, one big shout out to a gentleman I believe called the Green Viper 8 on Twitter. One thing that's been so cool when I shared this on Twitter is the Taiko community is just so welcoming. They're just like, yeah,
Oh.
one of us, you should do this, or you should try this, or you should try this other thing. And the reason why I'm shouting out Green Viper here is because they had recommended, they linked me to like an Etsy page and they said you should get this mod. And so I got both these drums, and one of them I didn't even use before I tried it. I literally opened it up before I even tested to make sure the drum worked. But on the drums themselves, there is, like that actual top of the drum. Then there is sensors underneath it when you open it. And underneath the sensor, there's a piece of foam for the backing there. Apparently, it is lighter, but it doesn't feel as good when you hit it. It's also not as accurate. So there are mods that can be done where you could either print in, like, use a 3D printed insert to replace that foam, or the one that I used was a piece of wood that was cut to fit that, like perfect height, width, size, everything. And it truly makes it feel like the arcade version when you're playing it. Because the second drum, I was smart. I actually like tried it out beforehand, and like it feels okay, but you can tell something's off. But once you mod it, like put that piece of wood in there, or kind of just put something that fills that properly, that is not foam, it feels so much better.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
It's very fun.
That's yeah, I've never heard of any game actually like that. That's very
Oh,
interesting.
it's very fun. I recommend playing it. It's a sickness now. It's taken over.
Yeah, I didn't know they made that types of games with that thing. Actually,
Hmm.
wow,
No,
that shows how out of touch I am.
they've been around for
Since
a while. It's
2001. Wow.
yes, yes. It's been at least 20 years. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, something to add to your game list then, something to try out. I hope one day you can get to an arcade, and I hope they have Taiko
Yeah, I'll look into that.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, dude, Octal, Josh, it's been great having you on. Great talking to you here. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on. I
Thank
really
you for
appreciate it.
having
I
me. Yeah, it's
no,
been fun.
dude, no problem.
I
Like
hope
it's
I didn't ramble too much.
the thing is, I think people like the rambling because it's very knowledgeable and it just shows like you're passionate about whatever you're talking about, and there's just a good conversation going on. So that's how we can go on for like 2 hours and it feels like it was 20 minutes.
Oh, I hope so. Sometimes I feel like I'm just talking and talking and talking about stuff that nobody even cares about. But
But
if they
but
do, I mean, that's awesome.
that's the beauty of the internet because you can find other people who are into the very weird specific niche shit that you think you're the only one about. And it's like you go there's like, "Wait, there's so many people that are into this same thing. This is cool." I love it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for having me on.
Dude, no problem, no problem. I do want to give you the honors of this. So, typically, what I do at the end of these episodes of Mario's Minute is I pick a keyword or a key phrase. And if you end up using, like you as a commenter, as a listener, if you go to the YouTube upload of this and you use this keyword or key phrase in your comment on the upload, Octo and I will both know that you've made it to the end of this episode. So, I'm going to actually pass it on to you. What do you think the keyword or key phrase should be?
Well, I'm going to just guess at random and say that the key phrase should be airport because an airport is a great place where you can come and go to different places, experience different worlds and cultures, and see people that you care about. So that's going to be my word.
Okay.
All right.
Uh,
Well, thanks very much. And yeah, I hope everyone listening is having a great evening.
for sure,
And
for sure.
yeah,
I,
thanks
I
again for having me on.
no problem, man. I guess the very last thing from you here, I typically put these links down below in the description, but like, where can people find you online if they want to, converse with you, talk to you, anything you want to plug?
Uh, well, I have my YouTube channel just under my name, Josh Davidson. Mostly it's just random shit I do with the Xbox. If I find it interesting, I post it, some of my developments there, and occasionally some unrelated topics. That's pretty much about it. I don't really use social media personally. I've just found it invades your life, so it's not for me.
Good.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, gotcha. So yeah, I'll just in the description of this, I'll just go ahead and link your channel,
Yeah,
and
thanks,
we'll be
man.
all good. Hey, no problem, no problem. Yeah. Anyways, let's go ahead and wrap up this episode of Mario's Minute. Thank you all so much for listening, watching, tuning in, everyone. Really appreciate you all coming out, month to month, or even if this is your first episode. This is awesome. But, anyways, I think that's about it for this episode here. If you enjoyed this episode of Mario's Minute, you can go ahead and leave a like on the upload. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. But as I always say, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching, everyone. And until next month.